Hi, in this lesson we are going to go over circles. We're going to talk about circumference and also area of a circle, but I want to start off talking to you about just the different parts of a circle so we understand exactly what questions they're talking about. I just like to visualize things, so I want to show you like a simple visual here. So in a circle, we have the center of the circle, okay? We have the radius. The radius of a circle starts at the center and goes all the way to the edge of the circle, okay? This is the radius. And then we also have the diameter. The diameter starts at one edge of a circle, goes all the way through the center to the other edge of the circle, okay? So another thing we want to talk about is understanding what circumference is referring to. So circumference is the measure of the outside of the circle. So if we were to take a string and we were to put it on the outside, and then we were to measure that string, that would give us the circumference. It's the same idea with the, the perimeter, right, of the square and the rectangle, which is the measure of the outside. It's the same thing here. It's like the circumference is basically the perimeter of a circle, okay? And then the area includes everything inside. So all the space that is inside that circle is what we call the area of the circle. Okay, now that we have that information, there's one more thing that is important for you to know. Radius, okay, 2 times the radius is equal to the diameter. How do I know that? Because a radius goes from the center to the edge and the center to the edge. So 2 radiuses put together, or radii put together, will give me the diameter, okay? Now that's important because sometimes a question will give you the diameter and ask you to find something for which you need the radius. When that happens, all we have to do is divide it by 2, okay? All right, so let's take a look at some concepts here that are important. First, we need to know what the equation is for circumference. So circumference is 2 times pi times r. So pi is basically, you can either use it as 3.14, you can multiply it that way, or you can just leave it as pi in the answer. How do I know which one to use? Look at the answer choices. If they do not have pi, that means you need to multiply by 3.14, okay? All right, so circumference is 2 pi r. That's the most important thing here. And now let's take a look at what these questions look like. So question number 1, a convoy truck circles a region for patrolling. The region has a diameter of 12 miles. So the region, right, has a diameter. Remember the diameter starts at the edge, goes through the center, and gets to the other edge. The center of the circle is there. So the convoy truck is patrolling this region. It's going around in circles like this in this region. So the question is, what is the circumference? If we find the circumference, that tells us the distance that the convoy truck is traveling around the circle. Okay? So now that we've kind of understood what the question is talking about, let's understand what it's giving us. The diameter is 12 miles, the whole thing here, 12. Remember what I told you about diameter and radius? To get the radius, I divide this by 2. So the radius is 6. Okay? And we're looking for the circumference. So 2 pi r. R is 6. So this is 2 times 6. 12 pi. So when we have pi, we can just multiply everything around it and the pi stays the same. It's like if pi was x, but we know what pi equals, okay? All right, so that was our first one. Let's keep going. A circle is drawn on a paper. It has a diameter of 19 inches. What is the radius of the circle? Okay, this one is even easier, right? It's asking us to find the radius based on the diameter. I know that radius is half the diameter, so I'm going to do 19 divided by 2. So 2 goes into 19 9 times. 2 times 9 is 18. 19 minus 18 is 1. I'm going to add a decimal, bring down a 0. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the radius equals 9.5. So that one was easy. I don't think you'll find a question like this necessarily on the ASVAB, but these kinds of questions also help you to just practice finding radius and diameter and all that stuff like that, which are usually smaller steps to finding the more complicated answers. Okay, so let's keep going. It says a circle is drawn on a paper. It has a radius of 23 centimeters. What is the diameter of the circle? Now here, remember, 2 times the radius equals diameter. So I'm going to do 23 times 2, and that's going to give me 46 centimeters. Okay, once again, that's just a little practice to help you get used to the idea of switching between diameter and radius. But more likely, you'll have questions like this or more complicated. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the area. So the equation for area of a circle is area equals pi r squared. Okay, so in this one, the r is being squared. Easy, and then we multiply it by pi. So let's take a look at some examples, and I'm going to rewrite our equation up here so we can keep referring back to it. If the diameter of a circle is 9 inches, what is the area of the circle? Here, it's giving us diameter, and we need radius. So first, we're going to divide this by 2. So 9 divided by 2. 4. Add a decimal. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, so my radius is 4.5 inches. So now I'm going to plug it into my equation, pi r squared, which means I need to multiply 4.5 times 4.5, because this is simply 4.5 squared times pi. So now, squaring 4.5, 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22, placeholder 0. 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 is 18. I'm going to add this up, 2, 10, 3, 0, 25. There are 2 numbers behind the decimal point in my question, so there will be 2 numbers behind the decimal point in my answer. So let me erase this so I can have some space here. Okay, there we go. So now I get area equals 30.25, because that's 4.5 squared, pi. And that's it. There we go. Okay, I hope you got that. It should be pretty easy to follow. Remember, all you have to do... Oh, I'm sorry, I did this wrong. That's not 30.25. That should be 20.25. I thought that looked funny. Okay, there we go. I apologize for that. Okay, so, I would encourage you to add these new equations to your note card where you're keeping, or your page, or whatever it is that you're using to keep your equations. So you have area, and then you have circumference, 2 pi r. So go ahead and add those to it. So now let's keep going. Let's look at the next example. It says if the radius of a circle is 12 centimeters, what is the area? Once again, area equals pi r squared. So 12 squared times pi, and 12 times 12 is 144 pi. Okay, super easy, right? All right, so in this one, it's starting us out with area, and then it asks us for diameter. So area equals pi r squared, which is here 36 pi. So it says the area of a circle is 36 pi. What is the diameter of the circle? All right, well, let me go ahead and just kind of get everything into place. So I'm going to divide by pi. This eliminates here and here. I'm left with r squared equals 36. I'm going to take the square root of r. That cancels out the square. And the square root of 36 is 6. So that gives me the radius. But what is the question asking me for? It's asking me for the diameter. And I know that diameter is 2 times r. So I have to do diameter times 2 times 6, and that gives me 12. Okay? All right, let's keep going. It says the area of a circle is 16 pi. What is the radius of the circle? Area is pi r squared, which is also equal to 16 pi. So I'm going to get rid of this. Actually, I'm going to erase it. I'm going to divide by pi. This cancels out. I'm left with r squared equals 16. I take the square root because that's the opposite of square. And I'm left with r equals, the square root of 16 is 4. So r equals 4. So these are kind of some questions to get you warmed up with, area and circumference and all that stuff. You're going to see some more challenging questions in the quiz. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're still using the same process. And I'll offer you some more challenging questions later on also. Okay? All right, awesome. So go ahead and give that quiz a try that follows this video. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment below. All right, good luck.
I'm left with 81. Okay, so let's take a look at the questions from the circles lesson. So let's start with the first one. It says, if the length of the radius of a circle is 9 inches, what is the area of the circle? When you're calculating the area of a circle, the formula is area is equal to pi times radius to the second power. So since they told me that the radius is equal to 9 inches, I'm going to go ahead and plug that in here. So I'm going to have that the area is equal to pi times 9 to the second power. That will give me that area will equal to pi times 81. Now, it's very common in mathematics for you to put pi all the way at the end, and given that this is multiplying, I can rearrange the order, and my result will still be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and just rearrange the order here. So I will have 81 pi inches squared, because since this is area, it will be inches squared. So your answer here would be A. Taking a look at our second problem, it says, what is the circumference of a circle whose radius is 15 inches? When we're calculating the circumference of a circle, the formula is equal to 2 times the radius times pi. Given that they tell us that the radius is equal to 15, I'm going to go ahead and plug that in to my formula. And now 2 times 15 will give me a total of 30 pi inches will be the circumference of this circle. So the answer here would be A. In this problem, it states, if the length of the diameter of a circle is 8 inches, what is the area of a circle? So you have to be very careful in these types of problems. And the reason is, the area formula for a circle states that area is equal to the radius squared multiplied by pi. However, in this problem, they do not give you the radius. They give you the diameter. So be very careful not to plug in diameter to the formula because it will give you the incorrect answer. Given that the diameter is equal to 8 inches, the radius is always equal to the diameter divided by 2, or in other words, half of the diameter. So we can go ahead and get the radius by simply taking 8 and dividing it by 2. So the radius of the circle will be 4 inches. That is the value that we're going to plug into our formula. So this value is going to be plugged in for the radius. So let's take a look at the area. Area is going to equal to 4 to the second power times pi. Area is equal to 16 pi inches squared is going to be our final answer for the area, so the answer would be B. In this problem, it states, the length of the diameter of a circle is 36 inches. What is the area of the circle? So again, in this problem, we have to be very careful because the area formula for a circle states that it is radius to the second power times pi. But in this problem, they're giving me diameter. So how can I get the radius from the diameter? Well, the radius is always equal to the diameter divided by 2. Given that the diameter is 36, I'm going to divide it by 2 to see what the radius will be. So the radius is going to equal to 18 inches. That is the value that we'll plug in for the formula of area. So the area is going to equal to 18 to the second power times pi. So let's go ahead and check what 18 times 18 is. 8 times 8 will give you 64, carry the 6. 1 times 8 is going to be 8, plus 6 will be 14. And now over here, 8 times 1 is 8, 1 times 1 is 1. We add the values together, that's going to be 12, carry the 1, that's going to be 3. So area is going to equal to 324 pi inches squared will be your final answer. So the answer here would be A. In this problem, it states, what is the radius of a circle whose circumference is 48 inches? Well, we have to keep in mind, what is the formula for circumference? Circumference is equal to 2 times the radius times pi. So if they're telling me that the circumference is equal to 48 pi, I can go ahead and plug that in. And now my job is to solve for r. So I'm going to start by first dividing both sides by pi. And now pi goes away here, pi goes away here. I'm left with 48 is equal to 2 times r. Once again, I'm going to divide by 2. That way r can remain alone. And it turns out that the radius is equal to 24 inches. So the answer would be A. In this problem, it states, if the diameter of a circle is 77 inches, the circumference of the circle is. So the circumference of a circle is 2 times the radius times pi. However, 2 times the radius is the same thing as diameter. So you could say that another formula for circumference is simply diameter times pi. Given that the diameter of this circle is 77, I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. 77 pi inches will be the circumference of this circle. So your answer would be A. In this problem, if the length of the radius of a circle is 11.2 inches, what is the length of its diameter? Well, diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. Given that the radius is 11.2, we can go ahead and multiply times 2 to see what the diameter will be. 11.2 times 2, that will give us 4, 2, 2. Since I have one number behind my decimal point, I need one number behind my decimal point. Therefore, diameter will equal to 22.4 inches as my final answer. So the answer would be D. In this problem, it says, if the length of the radius of a circle is 5.5 inches, the length of its diameter is. Diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. Given that the radius of this circle is 5.5, we can go ahead and multiply 5.5 times 2. That's going to give us 10, carry the 1. That's going to be 10 plus 1 will be 11. I had one value behind my decimal point, so I need one value behind my decimal point. And finally, this tells me that the diameter of the circle would be 11.0 or just 11 inches, making the final answer C. The length of the radius of a circle is 26.1 inches. The length of its diameter is. The diameter of a circle is equal to 2 times the radius. Given that the radius of this circle is 26.1, I can go ahead and multiply 26.1 times 2. That's going to give me 2. 12, carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Since I had one value behind the decimal point, I need one value behind the decimal point. So the final answer here would be that the diameter of the circle would be 52.2 inches, making the answer B. The circumference of a circle is 62 pi inches. What is the length of the diameter of a circle? The circumference of a circle is calculated by multiplying 2 times r times pi. However, 2 times r is the same thing as diameter, so you could say that circumference is equal to diameter times pi. They tell me that the circumference of this circle is 62 pi. So I can go ahead and solve for diameter. I'm going to start by dividing both sides by pi. So pi goes away here, and therefore the diameter of this circle would be 62 inches, which would make your answer A. If the radius of a circle is 2 inches, the circumference of the circle is. Circumference is equal to 2 times the radius times 5. So we can go ahead and plug in the value of r, which in this case is 2. And circumference will equal to 4 pi inches, which would make the answer A. The length of the radius of a circle is 77 inches. The circumference of the circle is, well, circumference is calculated by multiplying 2 times the radius times pi. Given that the radius of this circle is 77, I will go ahead and plug that in. So now 77 times 2 will equal to 14, carry the 1. 7 times 2 is 14 plus 1 is 15. So the circumference of this circle would be 154 pi inches, which would make your answer B. If the radius of this I messed up, sorry. Restarting in 3, 2, if the radius, sorry, I laughed at myself. Okay, anyways, re-recording and restarting in 3, 2. If the radius of a circle is 49 inches, what is the circumference of the circle? So circumference is calculated by taking 2 times the radius times 5. Given that the radius of this circle is 49, I'll go ahead and plug that in. Now 49 times 2 is going to be, 9 times 2 would be 18, carry the 1. 8 plus 1 is going to be 9. So the circumference of this circle would equal to 98 pi inches, which would make your answer C. If the area of a circle is 81 pi square inches, the length of the diameter of the circle is. So we're given that the area is equal to 81 pi square inches. Now area is calculated by taking the radius to the second power times pi. So you have to be careful because the area formula deals with radius, but the question is asking for diameter. So once we find what the radius is equal to, we know that the diameter is simply 2 times the radius. So let's first find the radius. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 81 pi for my area, and I'm going to solve for r. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by pi. Pi goes away, pi goes away. I'm left with 81 is equal to r squared. But I don't want r squared, I want just r. So in order to cancel out a power 2, I go ahead and take the square root on both sides. The square root and the square cancel out, leaving you with the radius is equal to the square root of 81, which means what number do you multiply by itself to get 81? And the answer to that would be 9. Now be very careful. They do put 9 as an answer choice, but that is not the correct answer because this problem is requiring of you to answer diameter. So we go over here where we know the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. Now that we know the radius is 9, we know that the diameter will equal to 18 inches. So the answer would be C. So hopefully by now you're feeling much more confident with circles. If you feel like you're still struggling with this topic, please feel free to join us in any of our 4 free live classes where you can talk to our instructors to get more help, to give you more examples, and hopefully be able to clarify any mistakes that you continue to make. We hope to see you in class, and if there's anything else we can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks!
Okay, so we have another lesson on geometry. This lesson is on volume. So like the other lessons in geometry that you've looked over already, it's mostly focused on understanding knowing the equation and understanding how to use the equation. So in this lesson, I'm actually going to go over a couple of different figures, and we're going to just look at volume of all of these figures. I'm going to show you the equation, and then I'm going to go over a couple of examples so you know how to use the equation appropriately. Okay? This is a great time, once again, to have that little note card or page or whatever it is that you're using to write down equations and things you should memorize. This is a great time to have that out because you're going to need it, okay? So we've talked about already circumference and area. Circumference refers to like the distance around like a shape, right? The area is all the space within the shape. With volume, we take this into 3 dimensions, which means already it's like a whole figure. So here in a cube, for example, if we look at one of the faces of the cube, we see that this is just a regular square. I think this one's a better example here. We see that this is just a regular square, okay? All the sides are equal. But what they've done is now there's more of it. So how do we get the volume of a square or a cube? A cube is a square in 3 dimensions. The volume is side cubed because this is the same, and this is the same. The length, the width, the height. Okay, it's all the same. So side cubed. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. The length of the sides of the cube is 11 inches. What is the volume of the cube? So volume for a cube is as cubed. So we're going to do 11 times 11 times 11. So I know 11 times 11 is 121. So now I'm going to multiply that by 11. So 121 times 11. 1, 2, 1, placeholder 0, 1, 2, 1. All right, let's add it up. 1, 3, 3, 1. So the volume of this cube is 1,331 inches. Now with units, because remember area was centimeters times centimeters or inches times inches, the answer was squared, centimeter squared, inches squared. With the volume, because it's inches times inches times inches 3 times, it's going to be cubed. Okay, so the unit is cubed. All right, so now that we got that, let's move on to another example. The length of the sides of a cube is 15 inches. The volume of the cube is, so this is volume equals s cubed, which is just 15 times 15 times 15. Okay, so let's start off with the first two. 15 times 15. 5, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Placeholder 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. I add these up. 5, 2, carry the 1. 225. So now, 225, I'm going to multiply it by this 15. Okay? So 225 times 15 is 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Placeholder 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. So now I add things up. 5, 7, 3, 3. So the volume is 3,375 inches cubed. And that's it. Okay? Pretty easy. All right, so let's look at some other shapes. Now that we got our cube down, or our square, right? We got our cube down. Let's look at what a rectangle looks like in 3D. So a 3D rectangle is called a rectangular prism, okay? And as you can see from the figure, we have the length, the width, but we have a new dimension now called height. Okay? So for the volume of a rectangular prism, it's just length times width times height. That's all it is. Okay? So now that we have our equation, let's practice using it. Let's see what it looks like using it. Another word, I'm so sorry, before I continue. Another word for a rectangular prism is a cuboid. Okay? So a cuboid has a length of 11 inches, a width of 10 inches, and a height of 3 inches. What is the volume? So the volume is length times width times height. All right, here we go. 11 times 10 gives me 110 times 3. 110 times 3 gives me 0, 3, 3. The volume is 330 inches cubed. Okay? All right, pretty easy. Next one. A rectangular prism is 14 inches long, 8 inches wide, and 12 inches high. The volume of the rectangular prism is. If you want to go ahead and hit pause and just do this math on your own, you're more than welcome to. When you're ready to look at the explanation, you can just hit play. Okay, so here volume is 14 times 8 times 12. So 14 times 8. Times 8. 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11. So it's 112 times 12. So 112 times 12. Here we go. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Placeholder 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 4, 4, 3, 1. So my answer, volume equals 1,344 inches cubed. Okay? So once again, it's pretty straightforward. Where you can mess up here is basically just multiplying. So make sure you take your time with the multiplication, and you should be fine. Okay? Next shape we're going to look at. So volume of a sphere. A sphere is simply a 3D circle. Okay? So to find the volume of a sphere, what we have to do is volume equals, this is our equation, 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay? That's it. That's our equation. So when we have anything that has to do with volume of a sphere, then we just plug it into this equation. All right, here we go. Okay, let's start with this first question. So it says the volume of a sphere is 2,304 pi cubic inches. What is the length of the radius of a sphere? Okay, so we know the equation is volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So we're just going to plug in our information. So wherever I see volume, I just put in automatically 2304. Okay, pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So I'm going to start off just by dividing by pi. So I can eliminate pi and simplify this for myself. So I have 2,304 equals 4/3 r cubed. Okay, so now I'm going to divide by 4/3 because this 4/3 is multiplied to the r, and I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Okay, so I'm actually going to do the division up here. So 2304 divided by 4/3. When I divide with a fraction, what I do is I take that second fraction and I turn it upside down. I flip it. I'm sorry. I flip it and I multiply. So times 3/4, and this is over 1. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply the top 2304 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 1. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6. And now I have 6912 over 4. So let me give myself some space. Let me do 6912 divided by 4. Okay, so 4 goes into 6 one time. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 2. Bring down the 9. 4 goes into 29. Well, 4 times 7 is 28. So 28, 29 minus 28 is 1. Okay, 4 goes into 11 two times. 4 times 2 is 8. 11 minus 8 is 3. Bring down the 2. 4 goes into 32 8 times. 4 times 8 is 32 exactly. 32 minus 32 is 0. So we have 1,728 equals, because this cancels out, and this gives me this, right, r cubed. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. Now I have to find the cube root on both sides. So that means what number multiplies 3 times to give me 1,728? All right, so this could be challenging, and this is going to take a little bit of trial and error, which means we're just going to have to try out different numbers. That's it. That's all that means. Okay, so let's think. I want to get all the way to 1,000. So if I think of 10, 10 times 10 is 100 times 10 is 1,000. Okay, so that's pretty close. So I know it's going to be above 10. All right, so now that I know it's above 10, let me try 11. 11 times 11, I know is 121. And 121 times 11 gives me 1, 2, 1. Space holder 1, 2, 1. 1, 3, 3, 1. So it has to be a little bit more than that. So now I'm going to try 12. And you know what? I'm going to make some space for myself because I just need the space. So now let me try 12. 12 times 12 is 144. And now 144 times 12. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. Placeholder 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. And now I add stuff up. 8 plus 0, 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 4 is 7. And 1 is 1. Guess what? It's 12. So R equals 12. Okay? So these questions are more challenging because you have to do like cubes and cube roots. But at the end of the day, you're still using your exact same equation. Let's try an easier equation. An easier question now. Number 2 says, a sphere has a radius that is 16 centimeters. What is the volume of the sphere? So here we're just plugging in volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And where we see an r, we're going to replace it with 16. So volume equals 4/3 pi 16 cubed. So now we have to do this math carefully. We don't want to mess up multiplying the 16. So I'm going to do 16 times 16. 6 times 6 is 36, carry the 3. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 3 is 9. Placeholder 0. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 6, 15, 256. But that's squaring the 16. Now we have to multiply by a third 16. So now we do 256 times 16. Here we go. 6 times 6, 36. 6 times 5, 30 plus 3, 33, carry the 3. 6 times 1, 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Placeholder 0. 1 times 6, 1 times 5, 1 times 2. 6, 9, 10, 4. 4,096. So now I'm going to plug that back into here. I'm going to replace this, and now I have volume equals, let me move back this way, 4,096. So 4/3 pi times 4,096, right? Let me just double check. Yes. So now I have to multiply 4,096 by 4/3. So let's do 4,000. Let's start off with 4,096 times 4. And then we'll divide it by 3. 4 times 6, 24, carry the 2. 4 times 9, 36 plus 2 is 38, carry the 3. 4 times 0, 0 plus 3 is 3. And 4 times 4 is 16. So now this glorious number is going to be divided by 3 because that's the next step, right? So 16, 384 divided by 3. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 times 5, 15. Subtract. Bring down the 3. 3 goes into 13 4 times. Let me make some space. 3 goes into 13 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Bring down the 1. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 4 1 time. 3 times 1, 3. And that's when I add a decimal and bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. And I can see already that this is going to be repeating. So I'm just going to leave this as 5,461.3. So volume equals 5,461.3 pi. And this is centimeters cubed. Okay? So what are some of the challenges here? The challenges here are dealing with that difficult math. In the sense that like we have to multiply a lot of things and there's a lot of space for mistakes. So you have to be really careful with that. Okay? Alright, so hopefully you got that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. I'm going to erase a couple of things here to make sure I have space for the next question. Okay, there we go. So it says, if the volume of a sphere is 36,000 pi cubic inches, what is the length of the radius of the sphere? Okay, so we got a lot going on here. Let's go ahead and start out with our equation. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And let's do 36,000 pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. First things first, divide by pi to get rid of it. Cancels it out. Now I have, 36,000 equals 4/3 r cubed. Okay, this is multiplied, this 4/3 is multiplied, so I'm going to divide by 4/3 on both sides. And I'm going to find what that is and set it equal to r cubed. So 36,000 divided by 4/3. I take the second one and flip it, I get 36,000 times 3/4. So 36,000 times 3, 0, 0, 0. 3 times 6 is 18, carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Okay, and now I'm going to take 108,000, and I'm going to divide that by 4. So 4 goes into 10, 2 times. 4 times 2, 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring down the 8. 4 goes into 28, 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 minus 28 is 0. And I have to bring down every 0. 1, 2, 3. So it's 27,000. Okay? So this is a big number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think, okay, I know that 10 cubed gives me 1,000. So let me try 20 cubed. So let me make some space. So I have some, I know what I'm doing. And I don't get confused. So 20 times 20 gives me 400 times 20. 0, 0, 8. That gives me 8,000. So I need to go even bigger than that. So let me try 30. 30 times 30, I get 0, 0. Placeholder 0, 0, 9. 900. times 30 again, that gives me 0, 0, 0. Placeholder 0. 3 times 0, 0. 3 times 0, 0. 3 times 9 is 27. Aha! 0, 0, 0, 27. So 30 cubed gives me 27,000. So if I take the cube root here of both of them, I get r equals 30. Okay? All right, I hope that made sense. I hope you got it. You have plenty of practice in the next one. But before we finish, there's one more shape I want to go over with you. And that is the cylinder. We're very familiar with cylinders, right? They're cans. That's the only example I can think of right now. But everyday life, there's plenty of cylinders we can look at. So what is the formula for finding the area of a cylinder? Sorry about that. What is the formula for finding the area of a cylinder? Volume equals pi r squared h. That's it. That's our formula. Okay. The reason we have the formula is because cylinder has part of a circle here, but it also has height. Okay. So it has the area of the circle times the height. All right. Let's see what that looks like in a question. If the height of a cylinder is 7 inches and the radius of its base is 13 inches, the volume of the cylinder is. All right. Let's just plug stuff in. Remember, it's volume equals pi r squared h. So volume equals. We know that pi is that. The radius is 13 inches. So radius squared. Sorry, that's 13 squared. Times the height is 7 inches, so times 7. So now we're going to do 13 times 13. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. Placeholder 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. That gives me 169. So I have volume equals pi times 169 times 7. So let's finish this. 169 times 7. 7 times 9 is 63, carry the 6. 7 times 6 is 42, plus 6 is 48, carry the 4. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4, 11. So this gives me 1,183. The volume then is 1,183 pi. Inches cubed. Sorry. Inches cubed. And there you go. Pretty easy. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. What is the volume of a cylinder whose height is 15 inches and the radius of its base is 4 inches? So volume equals pi r squared h. We're going to plug stuff in. Volume equals pi, that stays the same. The radius is 4 inches, so 4 squared times the height, which is 15. Okay? So 4 squared I know is 16. So now I have to do 16 times 15. 5 times 6, 30, carry the 3. 5 times 1, 5 plus 3 is 8. Placeholder 0. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 0. 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry 1. 240. So volume equals 240 pi. And that is inches cubed. Okay? All right. I think that's pretty straightforward. Just make sure to add this new equation to whatever you're using to record, like the important equations you need to memorize. Okay? And we have one very last shape. Sorry, I know I told you the last one was the last one, but we do have one more. So we're going to look at volume of a cone. So once again, a cone is a shape that we're pretty familiar with in everyday life. And the volume of a cone is, the equation is pi r squared, 1/3 pi r squared times height. Okay? So 1/3 pi r squared times height. The height for a cone is inside of the cone, okay? As you can see in the figure here. And that's it. So this is another one that we just get the information from the question and we just plug it into a formula. So first question says, if the radius of the base of a cone is 12 inches and its height is 6 inches, what is the volume of the cone? So remember, it's volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. Oh, I put 1/2, sorry. 1/3. Okay, so volume is, let's put it here, 1/3 pi. What is r? It says the radius of the base of the cone is 12 inches. So r is 12 squared. Times the height, 6 inches, times 6. Okay, 12 squared we know is 144. So now we have to do 144 times 6. So 144 times 6. 6 times 4, 24, carry the 2. 6 times 4, 24, plus 2, 26, carry the 2. And 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So now we have volume equals 1/3 pi times 864. Which means I need to do 864 times 1/3, or 864 over 3. So I'm just dividing here. Let me do it up here where I have some space. 864 divided by 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down the 6. 3 goes into 26 8 times. 3 times 8 is 24. 26 minus 24 is 2. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 24 8 times again. And that's 0. So volume equals 288 pi. And that is inches cubed because it's volume. Okay? Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. If you want to give this next one a try, it's always good to practice volume questions, not necessarily because it's so hard to figure out, but just because it's like that math, like it's so much multiplication and division, and sometimes you can get lost doing it. So it's just a good thing to practice, okay? So one more time, volume equals 1/3 pi r squared height. Okay, so it says, what is the volume of a cone whose height is 13 inches and the radius of its base is 5 inches? Okay, if you want to hit pause and give it a try, now's a good time to do so. When you're ready, just hit play again and you'll see the explanation. So we're just going to plug everything in. 1/3 pi r squared, here is telling us the radius is 5, so 5 squared, height is 13 inches. This is 25. Okay, so now I have to do 25 times 13. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7, placeholder 0. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2. So 5, 12, 3. Okay, now I have volume equals 1/3 pi times 325. So I have to do 325 over 3, which is 325 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 3 one time. Bring down the 2. 3 goes into 2 0 times. 3 times 0. Bring down the 5. 3 goes into 25 8 times. 3 times 8 is 24. I can add a decimal, bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. I can keep bringing down zeros, but I'm going to notice that I'm just going to keep repeating 3. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Volume equals 108.3 pi, and that is in inches cubed. Okay, awesome. All right, so now that we're done with all the shapes that we want to go over for the volume, I encourage you to go ahead and do the quiz below to practice just doing all this math and multiplication and division for these types of questions, and that way you're comfortable with it, okay? If you have a question, don't forget to just leave me a comment below, and I'll be more than happy to help. All right, good luck.
Do that, and I'll have 25, carry the 2. Alright, so in this video, we're going to take a look at the questions from the volume quiz. So the first question states, the length of the sides of a cube is 15 inches. What is the volume of the cube? So when you're calculating the volume of a cube, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to multiply the length times the width times the height. This is the same volume formula that we use for rectangle prisms. Now, the difference between a rectangle prism and a cube is that just like in a square, all the sides are the same. In a cube, all the sides are also the same. So this means that if they tell you that one side of the cube is 15, then that means all sides are equal to 15. So here what we're going to have is we're going to have 15 times 15 times 15. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 15 times 15. That's going to give me 25, carry the 2, and that'll be 7. And then over here, I'll have 5 and 1. Add those up together, and we'll get 5, 12, carry the 1, 2. But now we have to multiply 225 times 15. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll have 25, carry the 2. 10 plus 2 is going to be 12, carry the 1. And 10 plus 1 will be 11. And then over here, I'll have 5, 2, and 2. Add everything up together. And we have that our final answer is going to be 3,375 inches to the third power. When you're working with volume, units are always to the third power. So that's your answer. In this problem, it states the length of the sides of a cube is 10 inches. The volume of the cube is. So once again, the volume of the cube is calculated by multiplying the length times the width times the height. Given that a cube, all the sides are the same, then this means that I'm going to multiply 10 times 10 times 10. So that's going to give me 10 times 10 will be 100. Multiply that times 10, and that will be 1,000 will be the volume of this cube. And that'll be 1,000 inches cubed. In this problem, it states, if the length of the sides of a cube is 11 inches, what is the volume of the cube? So here, volume is going to equal to length times width times height. Given that a cube, all sides are the same, we'll have 11 times 11 times 11. 11 times 11 will give us 121. Multiply that times 11, and we'll have 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Add that up together. So the volume of a cube whose side measures 11 will be 1,331 inches to the third power. The next problem states, if the length of the side of a cube is 9 inches, then the volume of the cube is. So volume equals to length times width times height. Given that it's a cube, all of them will be the same. So that would mean 9 times 9 times 9. 9 times 9 is going to give you 81. Multiply that times 9, and we're going to get 9, and that's going to be 72. So the volume of the cube whose side measures 9 inches will be 729 inches to the third power. Next, what is the volume of a cube if the length of the sides of the cube is 16 inches? Well, volume will equal to length times width times height. In a cube, all sides measure the same. So if the side measures 16, I'm going to have 16 times 16 times 16. So let's start with 16 times 16, which is going to give me 36, carry the 3. That's going to be 6 plus 3 is 9. Over here, I'll have 6 and 1. Add everything together, and I get 6, 15, carry the 1, 256. Now we multiply that times 16. So that will be 36, carry the 3. That will be 30 plus 3 is 33, carry the 3. Now that will be 12 plus 3 will be 15. And then 6, 5, and 2. Add that together. 6, 9, 10, carry the 1, and that will be 4. So the volume of a cube whose side measures 16 inches will be 4,096 inches to the third power. The volume of a cube is 27 cubic inches. What is the length of the sides of a cube? So first of all, I don't want you to freak out when you read cubic inches. That just means it's inches to the third power. Okay, in volume we measure in cubic units, cubic inches, cubic centimeters. So in this problem, it's a bit different than before because before they gave you the side lengths and you have to find the volume. This time, it's the other way around. So what you have to remember is that because this is a cube, the volume is going to equal to the length times the width times the height. But since all of those three values will be the same, it's the same as saying that the volume will equal to the length times length times length. Given that the volume is equal to 27, this means you need to find a number that if you multiply by itself 3 times, you're going to get 27. So let's take a look at 2. If I multiply 2 times 2 times 2, that's going to be 4 times 2 is going to be 8, not equal to 27. So it will not be 2. Let's look at 3. 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. So there you go. Now you know that if the side measurement would be 3, then the volume would be 27, because when you multiply 3 times itself 3 times, you get 27. Next, what is the length of the sides of a cube whose volume is 1,728? So, given that this is a cube, we know that the volume will equal to whatever the side measurement is, you will have to multiply times itself 3 times. So let's say, for example, here would be length times length times length, because all three of them are going to be the same. Now, I know that the volume is 1,728. I need to find a number that if I multiply by itself 3 times, I get 1,728. So let's check 10. So 10 times 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is 100, times another 10 is going to give you 1,000, which unfortunately does not equal to 1,728, so it's not going to be 10. Next, let's try 11. 11 times 11 times 11. 11 times 11 is 121. 121 times 11, let's do it really quickly just to know. So that'll be 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So that'll be 1, 3, 3, 1. So that'll be 1,331, which once again is not equal to 1,728, so it will not be 11. Next, I'm going to check 12. 12 times 12 times 12. So now 12 times 12 is 144, and I'm going to multiply 144 times 12, and that's going to give me, let's see, this will be 8, 8, 2, 4, 4, 1. and that'll be 8. 12, carry the 1, that'll be 7, and that'll be 1. So there we go. We found that 12 to the third power, 12 multiplied by itself 3 times, is going to be 1,728. So if the volume is equal to 1,728, the side measurements are going to be 12. If the volume of a cube is 2,744 cubic inches, what is the length of the sides of the cube? So volume of a cube is equal to length times width times height, but in a cube, all the measurements are the same, so that's the same thing as length times length times length. Given that the volume is 2,744, I need to find a number that if I multiply by itself 3 times, I'm going to get 2,744. So I'll go ahead and start with 13. 13 times 13 times 13. 13 times 13 is 169. If I multiply that times 13, that's going to give me 27, carry the 2. That'll be 18 plus 2 is 20, carry the 2. And that'll be 3 plus 2 is 5. And then over here, 6, and 1. So that'll be 7, 9, 11, carry the 1, and 2. So this is going to equal to 2,197, which unfortunately is not equal to 2,744. So it is not going to be 13. Now let's try the same thing, but with 14. 14 times 14 times 14. So I'm going to actually do it this way. So 14 times 14, that's going to be 16, carry the 1, and that'll be 5. And then over here, I'll have 4 and 1. So that'll be 6, 9, 1. Multiply that times 14 one more time. And that'll be 24, carry the 2. 9 times 4 is going to be 36, plus 2 is going to be 38, carry the 3. 1 times 4 is going to be 4, plus 3 is going to be 7. And then I'll have 6, 1, 9, 1. And I'm going to raise this up just a little bit so I have a little bit more space here. Actually, let me just shrink it. That's better. All right. So now we add 4. That's going to be 14, carry the 1. That'll be 8 plus 9 will be 17, carry the 1, and 2. So there we go. Now we have a matching. So 14 times 14 times 14 is going to equal to 2,744. So if the volume of the cube is 2,744, then the measure of the sides would have to be 14. In this problem, it states that a box has a length of 13 inches, a width of 11 inches, and a height of 5 inches. What is the volume of the box? So when they mention a box, in your head, you should be picturing either some kind of cube or rectangular box. Now, in this case, it's not going to be a cube because they're telling me 3 different side measurements. And a cube, all the side measurements are the same. But regardless of that, the volume formula is the same. Length times width times height. So the volume here will equal to 13 times 11 times 5. And remember that in multiplication, you can multiply in whatever order you want. So I'm just going to multiply the last two first, as I know that that's going to be 55. And now I'll do here 13 times 55. That's going to be 15, carry the 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. This is going to once again be 15, carry the 1. And 5 plus 1 is 6. So that'll be 5, 11, carry the 1, 7. So the volume of a box with a length of 13, a width of 11, and a height of 5 will be 715 inches to the third power. A box is 11 inches long, 7 inches wide, and 9 inches high. What is the volume of the box? So the volume of a rectangular prism, or in other words a box, is going to be length times width times height. So the volume here will be 11 times 7 times 9. So the volume will equal to 11 times 7 is 77 times 9. We'll do that over here on the side. That's going to be 63, carry the 6, and that's going to be 63. Plus 6 is going to be 69. So the volume would equal 693 inches to the third power. If the length of a box is 9 inches, its width is 8 inches, and its height is 2 inches, what is the volume of the box? So the volume of the box is calculated by multiplying length times width times height. So they tell me the length is 9, the width is 8, and the height is 2. So volume is going to equal to 9 times 8 is 72 times 2. That's going to be 4, and that's going to be 14. So the volume is going to equal to 144 inches to the third power. The radius of the base of a cylinder is 20 inches, and its height is 16 inches. What is the volume of the cylinder? So a cylinder has a base of a circle. So a cylinder essentially looks like this. You have 2 circles at the top and the bottom, and they connect, and thus you have a cylinder. Now they're telling you that the radius of this base is going to be 20 inches. Now that's important because to calculate the volume of a cylinder, you have to pretty much calculate the area of the base and multiply times the height. Now, given that the base is a circle, you're going to calculate the area of a circle, which is pi times radius to the second power, and then at the end, you multiply by the height. So that means that here, we're going to have pi times 20 to the second power times 16. So the volume will equal to pi times 20 to the second power will be 400 times 16. So right here on the side, I'll do 400 times 16. That will be 0, 0, 24, 0, 0, 4, 0, 0, 4, 6. So the volume here is going to equal to pi times 6,400. Now, because these two are multiplying, I'm going to go ahead and rearrange the order. You can kind of say that in mathematics, it is quote-unquote grammatically correct that if your final answer is going to have pi tends to go at the end. So I'm just going to rearrange the order here, so it would be 6,400 times pi at the end. And this is going to be inches to the third power. This problem states the height of a cylinder is 15 inches and the radius of its base is 18 inches. The volume of the cylinder is. So, in a cylinder, to calculate the volume, we're going to multiply the area of the base, which is a circle, so circle base, times the height. So volume is equal to, the area of a circle is pi times radius to the second power, and then at the end, everything times the height. They tell me that the radius of this base is going to be 18 inches, and the height is 15. So I'll have pi is equal to 18 to the second power times 15. So let's see, 18 times 18 will be 4, carry the 6. That will be 8 plus 4 is 14. And then over here, I'll have 8, 1, add together, 4, 12, carry the 1, and 3. So the volume is going to equal to pi times 324 times 15. So now let's multiply this times 15. That will be 20, carry the 2. That will be 10 plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. That will be 15 plus 1 is 16. And then 4, 2, 3. That will be 0, 6, 8, and 4. So the volume is going to equal to pi times 4,860. And again, since you're multiplying, you can rearrange the order here, and we always prefer to have pi at the end. So I'm going to have 4,860 pi inches to the third power. If the volume of the if the radius of the base of a cylinder, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna restart that one. Okay, so restarting this question in 3, 2. If the radius of the base of a cylinder is 9 inches and its height is 12 inches, what is the volume of the cylinder? So the volume of the cylinder is calculated by finding the area of the circle base, multiplied by the height. So given that it's a circle, the area formula for a circle is pi times radius to the second power, and then everything at the end will be multiplied by the height. They tell me that the radius is 9 inches and the height is 12. So that means that volume will equal to pi times 9 to the second power times 12. So the volume will equal to pi times 81 times 12. So 81 times 12, that will be 2, 16. That will be 1 and 8. So it will be 2, 7, 9. So the volume will equal to pi times 972. And I'm going to go ahead and rearrange this so I can have pi at the end, and I'm allowed to do that because they're multiplying. So it'll be 972 pi inches to the third power. If the height of a cylinder is 8 inches and the radius of its base is 13 inches, the volume of the cylinder is. So the volume of the cylinder is calculated by having the area of the base, which is a circle, and that's going to be pi times the radius to the second power, and then everything will be multiplied by the height. So they tell me that the radius is 13 and the height is 8. So pi equals to 13 to the second power times 8. So the volume will equal to pi times 169 times 8. So 169 times 8, that'll be 2, carry the 7. That'll be 48 plus 7 will be 55, carry the 5. That'll be 8 plus 5 will be 13. So the volume will equal to pi times 1,352. And I'm going to go ahead and rearrange that, and I'm allowed to do that because they're multiplying. So 1352 pi inches to the third power would be my final answer. Hi everyone, so in this video we're going to go ahead and take a look at the questions from the Mathematics Knowledge Review from level 8. So let's go ahead and start. In this first question we have, a square has a side that is equal to 4.7. What is the perimeter of the square? So in a square, one of the things that we know is that all four sides measure the same. So if this measures 4.7, so does this, so does this, so does this. Now perimeter is our key word here. Perimeter means that you're going to sum up all the sides. Given that all four sides here are exactly identical, we can go ahead and save ourselves a little bit of time, and instead of adding 4.7 4 times, we can just multiply 4.7 times 4. So 4.7 times 4, 7 times 4 will give us 28, carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 will give us 18. Given that we had one value behind the decimal point, we will need one value behind our decimal point, making our final answer 18.8 inches, which would make it B. In this problem, we have that if the volume of a cube is 2,197 cubic inches, the length of the side of a cube is. In a cube, it's similar to the situation we have in a square. All sides measure the same. Now, the volume of a cube is calculated by multiplying the length times the width times the height. But as I just said, all three of these measure the same. So it's almost the same as just saying the length to the third power, because it would be length times length times length. So if I plug in the value of 2,197 for the volume, my question is, what number do I multiply by itself 3 times in order to get 2,197? So let's go ahead and start by checking 13. 13 times 13 would give you, that would be 9, that would be 3, 3, and 1. So this would give you 169. But we have to multiply times 13 one more time. This would be 27, carry the 2. 6 times 3 would be 18, plus 2 would be 20, carry the 2. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5. And then here we would have 9, 6, and 1. We add everything up. I'm going to go ahead and move this so we can see this a little bit better. So this would be 7, 9. This would give me 11, carry the 1, and 2. And look at that. That's exactly the value we were looking for. So this means that 13 to the third power equals to 2,197. So the side measurement of this cube would have to be 13. The answer would be A. In this problem, it says, what is the length of the sides of a cube if the volume of a cube is 512 cubic inches? So in a cube, the volume is calculated by multiplying the length times the width times the height. But in a cube, all three of these are the same. So it's almost the same as saying the length times the length times the length, which is length to the third power. So if the volume is 512 equals to the length to the third power, we have to think of what number do we multiply by itself 3 times in order to get 512. Let's check 6. We know that 6 times 6 is 36, but now we have to multiply that times 6 one more time. 6 times 6 is 36, carry the 3. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 3 would be 21. Unfortunately, that is not equal to 512, so we know it's not going to be 6. Let's try 7. 7 times 7 is going to equal to 49, and now we multiply that times 7 one more time. 9 times 7 is going to be 63, carry the 6. 4 times 7 is going to be 28. 28 plus 6 would be 34. Unfortunately, once again, that does not equal to 512, so it won't be that. Now let's check 8. 8 times 8 is 64, and we're going to go ahead and multiply that times 8. So that's going to give us 32, carry the 3. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 3 is 51. And there we go. We found the value we're looking for, which is 512. 512 is the same thing as 8 times 8 times 8. So the answer would be C. In this problem, it states, if a box is 7 inches long, 19 inches wide, and 4 inches high, what is the volume of the box? Well, a box is essentially a rectangular prism. So the volume is calculated by multiplying length times width times height. The length is given as 7, the width is given as 19, and the height is given as 4. Now you can multiply this in any order you want. I'm going to go ahead and multiply 7 times 4, because I know it's going to be 28, but I still have to multiply 19 here. So 28 times 19, that's going to be 72, carry the 7. That's going to be 18 plus 7 is going to be 25. 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2. Add everything together, we get 2, that would be 13, carry the 1, and that would be 5. So the volume of this box would be 532 inches to the third power, or in other words, cubic inches. And that would make the answer B. In our next problem, it says, what is the volume of a box whose length, width, and height is 17 inches, 12 inches, and 9 inches respectively? To calculate the volume of a box, we multiply the length times the width times the height. The length is given as 17, the width is given as 12, and the height is given as 9. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 17 times 12. That's going to give me 14, carry the 1, that would be 3. This would be 7, this would be 1. So that would be 4, 10, carry the 1, 2. So these two would give me 204, but I still have to multiply that times 9. That would be 36, carry the 3. That would be 0 plus 3 is 3, and 2 times 9 is 18. So our final answer would be that the volume is equal to 1,836 inches to the third power, or in other words, cubic inches. And that would make the answer B. In this problem, we have that a box is 8 inches long, 3 inches wide. What is the height of the box if it has a volume of 192 cubic inches? In this problem, the information is given a little bit different than what we've seen before. They usually give us the length, the width, and the height, and our job is to find the volume. This time around, they give you the volume, and you're looking for one of the other missing pieces. The formula will remain the same. Volume is equal to length times width times height. So let's plug in the values that we do have. This is going to be 192, the length is 8, and the width is 3. And our job is to find h, so I'm going to leave h as a variable. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two numbers, and that will give me 24 times h. Now, given that I want to have h alone, I will go ahead and divide both sides by 24. So h is going to equal to 192 divided by 24. Now, I don't know the multiplication table of 24, but I think I can work with 25. I know that 25 fits into 200 8 times. Since I'm working with 24 and I'm working with 192, I'm going to try 8 because they're both smaller, so 8 might just fit. So let's try 8. 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 would be 19. Perfect. So the final answer is that the height would be 8 inches, which would make the answer D. In this problem, it states, what is the volume of a cylinder whose height is 16 inches and the radius of its base is 2 inches? So here, we're working with a cylinder. Now, the shape of a cylinder is essentially two circles that connect. Now, given that the base is a circle, the volume of the cylinder is calculated by taking the area of the circle, which is pi times radius squared, and then multiplying by the height. So they tell me that the height is 16, so I'll plug that in, and they tell me that the radius is 2, so I'll go ahead and plug that in as well. And we have pi. So volume is going to equal to pi times 2 to the second power is 4 times 16. So I'll go ahead and do the multiplication here on the side. 6 times 4 is 24, carry the 2. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 2 is 6. So the volume is going to equal to pi times 64. I'm going to go ahead and rearrange the order here because in mathematics we do tend to leave pi at the end. So the volume here would actually be 64 pi inches to the third power, which would make our answer C. In this problem, it states the volume of the cylinder is 88 pi cubic inches, and the radius of its base is 2 inches. The height of the cylinder is. So in this question, they give us a little bit backwards. They give us the volume, our job is to find the height. Now the formula is still the same. Formula of the volume of a cylinder will still be the area of its base, which is a circle. So that's going to be pi times radius to the second power times height. Let's plug in the values we do have and see what we need to solve for. So volume is going to be 88 pi equals to pi stays the same. The radius is 2, so 2 to the second power, and we don't know the height, so I'll leave that as h. So here I have 88 pi is equal to pi times 2 to the second power is 4 times h. So given that I want to get h alone, I'm going to get rid of the other two numbers. I'm going to first get rid of pi by dividing on both sides. Pi goes away, pi goes away. Now I'm left with 88 is equal to 4 times h. And again, I want to get h alone, so I'm going to go ahead and once again divide by 4. And that will leave me with h is equal to 88 divided by 4. 4 fits into 8 twice, giving us 8. And once again, 4 fits into 8 twice, giving us 8. So the answer would be 22 inches is the height of the cylinder, making the answer C. In this problem, it says a square has a side that is equal to x plus 2. If the perimeter is 16, what is the value of x? Well, here, the key word is perimeter. That's what's going to help you figure this out. So if you have a square, you know that all four sides are measured the same. Oh, that doesn't look like a square. Let's try it again. That looks more like a square. So the side measures x plus 2. In a square, all four sides measure the same, meaning that all four of these are x plus 2. Perimeter means you're going to add up all the sides. So the perimeter of a square is essentially going to be x plus 2 plus x plus 2 plus x plus 2 plus x plus 2, or in other words, 4 times x plus 2. Now we can plug in the value of perimeter, which they told us is 16. And now our job is to solve for x. So let's start by distributing the 4, which would give us 16 is equal to 4x plus 8. Now once again, our job is to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. That's going to leave me with 8 is equal to 4x. And again, the last step to get x alone is to divide by 4 on both sides. So x is going to equal to 2, which would make your answer A. In this problem, we have that if the radius of a circle is 30 inches, what is the area of a circle? The area of a circle is calculated by multiplying the radius to the second power times pi. So the area here is going to equal to, the radius is 30, so I'll plug that in, to the second power times pi. Now 30 times 30 is going to be 0, and that's going to be 0, over here is going to be 0, and that's going to be 9. So the area will equal to 900 pi inches squared, which would make the answer C. In this problem, a rectangle has a length of 3 inches and a width of 1.5 inches. What is the perimeter of the rectangle? When you're working with perimeter, it means that you're going to add up all the sides. In a rectangle, you have 2 identical lengths and 2 identical widths. So the perimeter of a rectangle is the same as 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So perimeter will equal to 2 times the length of 3 plus 2 times the width of 1.5. So this would be 6 plus 1.5 times 2. That would be 10. Carry the 1. That would be 2 plus 1 is 3. 1 number behind my decimal point, 1 number behind my decimal point. So here it would be 3. And finally, you add these two values together, and the perimeter is equal to 9 inches, which would make the answer B. In this problem, we have a rectangle has a length of 7.25 inches and a width of 6.50 inches. What is the perimeter of the rectangle? The keyword here is perimeter. In a rectangle, we have 2 identical lengths and 2 identical widths. So when we calculate the perimeter, you would have 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Now let's plug in the values we have. The length is 7.25. The width is 6.50 or 6.5. It's the same thing. So quickly here on the side, I will go ahead and multiply 7.25 times 2. That would be 10, carry the 1. That would be 4 plus 1 is 5, and that would be 14. Given that I had 2 values behind my decimal point, I need 2 values behind my decimal point, which would make this 14.5. Now let's go ahead and do 6.5 times 2. That would be 10, carry the 1. That would be 12 plus 1 is 13. I had 1 value behind my decimal point, so I need 1 value behind my decimal point, making this equal to 13. And now finally, I add these two values together. So I'm going to have 14.5 plus 13.0. And again, I put that 0.0 so that my decimals are aligning. That would be 5, decimal point, 7, and 2. So my answer would be 27.5 or 0.50 inches. which would make my answer D. In this problem, the length of the radius of a circle is 33.7 inches. What is the length of its diameter? The relationship between the radius of a circle and its diameter is that diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So let's go ahead and plug in the value for the radius, which was 33.7. 33.7 times 2 would be, this would be 14 carry the 1. That would give us 6 plus 1 is 7, and finally 6. Given that I had one value behind my decimal point, I need one value behind my decimal point, so the measurement for diameter would be 67.4 inches, making the answer D. In this problem, a rectangle has a length that is equal to x plus 7 inches and a width of 10 inches. If the perimeter is 68, what is the value of x? Given that we're working with a rectangle and we're calculating perimeter, the perimeter of a rectangle is calculated by 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So let's put in the values that we know. We know the perimeter is 68. We know that the length is equal to x plus 7. Even though it's an expression, we can go ahead and plug that in. And we know that the width is 10. So now let's work to solve for x, starting with distributing the 2. So that would give me 68 is equal to 2x plus 14 plus 20. I can combine the like terms. So 68 is equal to 2x plus 34. And now my job is to solve for x. Oopsies. My job is to solve for x, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 34 from both sides first, leaving me with 2x here. And this would leave me with 4 and 3. And finally, to get x alone, we will divide by 2 on both sides. And that would leave me with x is equal to 34 divided by 2. 2 fits into 3 one time. Bring down the 4, and that would be 7. So x would equal to 17, making your answer B. In this problem, we have the length of the diameter of a circle is 74.4 inches. What is the length of its radius? The relationship between diameter and radius of a circle is that the radius is equal to half of the diameter. So given that the diameter is 74.4, we're going to go ahead and divide that by 2. 74.4 divided by 2. I'm going to go ahead and move this decimal point all the way to the end so it doesn't cause me any issues. But if I move it on the inside ones, I have to move it on the outside ones. And I'm going to fill in this empty spot with a 0. So now I'm working with 20 and 744, which is perfectly fine. 20 fits into 74 3 times. That would give you 60. We subtract and we get 4, and this would give me 1. Now I'm going to bring down the 4. 20 fits into 144 7 times, and that would be 140. We subtract and we get 4. Now I put a decimal point, I add a 0, and bring it down. 20 fits into 40 twice. So our final answer would be that the radius is equal to 37.2 inches, which would make your answer B. So hopefully by now you're feeling very confident with your math knowledge. You're towards the end of the course, so that's a fantastic thing. Hopefully, if you need any help, please feel free to join us in any of our 4 free live classes. You should be receiving the schedule to your email, and if there's anything we can help you before you're ready to take your test, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you!